The card game of life, finding your match. Introduction. We are born with an innate, almost primal, need to connect. It is woven into our very being, a silent hum that drives us to seek out others, to share our lives, to find our tribe. From the earliest moments, we crave the comfort of a parent's embrace, the shared laughter with a friend, the deep understanding in a partner's eyes. This yearning is not a weakness. It is a fundamental part of what makes us human. In this journey we call life, imagine each of us is dealt a unique hand of cards at birth. These are not just any cards, they represent our very essence, our personality, our quirks, our dreams, our values, the unique way we see the world. This is your card. It is not about being better or worse than anyone else's card. It is simply about who you are. The grand game we play, the card game of life, is all about finding other people whose cards fit well with yours. It is about finding your matches, the friends who truly get you, the romantic partners who complement your spirit, the colleagues who inspire you, the people who make your world feel richer and more complete. But here's the tricky part, and it's something many of us feel without quite being able to name it. This game often feels rigged. We go through life interacting mostly with the same small group of people, the ones we went to school with, the ones we work with, the ones our family knows. These places, while important, are like playing cards in a very small room. They limit the cards we get to see, the potential matches we're even aware of. It is as if the deck is stacked, and we are only ever shown a few cards, making it hard to find the perfect fit. Because our world often shrinks our social circles, we start to feel like we have to make do. We might settle for friendships that feel a bit thin, or relationships that don't quite spark joy. We compromise not because we want to, but because the options presented to us seem limited. This can lead to a quiet frustration, a feeling of, is this all there is? It is like having a beautiful, unique card in your hand, but only being able to play it with a handful of other cards you've been given. And then there's rejection. Oh, rejection. It is a sting we all know, a moment that can make us question everything about ourselves. But what if we could see rejection differently? What if, in the context of this card game, rejection is not a sign that your card is flawed or undesirable? What if it simply means that the other person's card, for whatever reason, was not the right fit for yours at that moment or for that particular game? It is not a personal failing, it is just a lack of a match. Think of it like this. If you are trying to complete a royal flush and someone offers you a pair of aces, it is not that the aces are bad cards, it is just that they are not the specific cards you need to win this hand. This book is about changing how we play the card game of life. It is about understanding that the limitations we feel often come from the structures around us, not from within us. The real promise lies in actively and consistently expanding our interactions, in deliberately stepping outside our usual circles. By doing this, we can dramatically increase the number of cards we get to see, the potential matches we can discover. We can learn to see rejection not as a judgment, but as a simple signal that it was not the right fit, freeing us to keep searching for those who truly resonate with our unique card. We'll explore practical, simple ways to show your card to more people and to sort through a wider deck, helping you find the genuine connections you deserve. Let's begin by understanding your hand, and then by learning how to expand the deck. Chapter 1. Understanding your identity. 1. Who are you? Who are you at your deepest core? The question, on its surface, might seem as elementary as a child's inquiry about their favorite hue. Yet, upon closer examination, it transforms into an elusive wisp, a phantom grasped at, but never truly held. So much of our existence is dedicated to embodying roles for others: the diligent student, the dutiful employee, the devoted son or daughter, the steadfast friend. These designations are akin to meticulously tailored costumes, and in the wearing, we often lose sight of the self that lies beneath. Life, in its grand, intricate tapestry, presents each of us with a singular hand of cards, a unique deck that in its very composition, defines us. The prevailing challenge, however, is that many remain oblivious to the precise nature of their own holdings. We cast envious glances at the hands of others, their dazzling aces, their unassailable kings, and perceive our own as deficient. We may even be tempted to orchestrate trades, or to feign possession of cards we do not, all in a desperate bid for acceptance or a perceived fit. Yet, this intricate game, the pursuit of authentic connection, is not won by the highest-ranking cards or the most ostentatious display. It is won by the profound understanding of your cards, by their inherent valuation, and by the subsequent discovery of kindred spirits whose hands, when joined with yours, create a breathtaking synergy. Consider, for a moment, the ritual of introduction. What words typically emerge? I am a teacher, or I work in marketing, or I am married. These are undeniably valid and integral facets of your life. But do they encapsulate the totality of your being? Do they represent the deepest stratum of your identity? Society, with its subtle yet pervasive influence, often leads us to equate our roles, our professions, our titles with our very essence. It is akin to asserting that a dwelling is defined solely by its postal code, or a tome by its cover. But a house possesses rooms, a foundation, a history, a book teems with characters, plot, and thematic depth. You too contain all of this and infinitely more concealed within the unique composition of your personal card. Your true card is not a reflection of your actions, but an embodiment of your being. It is the quiet resonance of your existence, the very nexus of your spirit. It is found in your most profound values, those principles that hold ultimate significance, the tenets by which you navigate your life even when the path is arduous. It is present in your passions, those incandescent pursuits that ignite your soul and render time an irrelevant construct. It resides in your innate talents, those effortless gifts you possess, the aptitudes that manifest without conscious strain. And yes, it is also found in your idiosyncrasies, those charming peculiarities that render you wonderfully, irrevocably unique. These are the foundational elements of your card, the very essence of your being, unassailable by external judgment or the transient nature of your present roles. We are all bestowed at birth with this inherent card, a singular confluence of traits, predispositions, and latent potentials. Yet, as we mature, we are inevitably shaped by the deck we encounter. This deck is comprised of all that surrounds us from our inception, the aspirations of our families, the prevailing cultural currents, the educational institutions we attend, the friendships we forge. At times, these influences prove profoundly beneficial, nurturing our growth. At others, they insidiously steer us toward the adoption of a particular card, one that may not authentically belong to us. Imagine being consistently informed that you are a spade, when your innermost being resonates with the spirit of a heart. You might then endeavor to perform as a spade, to conform to the established mold, to appease those around you. But this pursuit is utterly draining and fundamentally inauthentic. It is through such deviations that we can gradually drift from our true selves, mistaking acquired behaviors and imposed identities for our genuine card. The inaugural step toward a genuine apprehension of your card lies in an inward gaze, in the deliberate dismantling of external influences that may be obscuring your authentic self. Pose the question, from whence did this self-perception originate? Did parental desires for you to become a physician lead you to believe that medicine is your calling, even when your heart yearns for the canvas? Were you habitually teased by friends for your quietude, prompting you to internalize quietude as a deficit, when perhaps it is merely a facet of your observant disposition? This is not an exercise in assigning blame, rather, it is an acknowledgement that these external forces can subtly sculpt our self-image without our conscious awareness. The objective is to gently peel back these layers, to discern between the identity projected onto you and the self you intuitively recognize. This juncture marks the commencement of true self-discovery. A formidable instrument in this expedition is the comprehension of your core values. Your values function as the invisible threads that interlace the very fabric of your being. They are your guiding constellations, the principles that illuminate your path through life's myriad choices. When your core values are clearly delineated, you possess an internal compass that directs you toward what genuinely matters and away from what does not. How, then, does one unearth these core values? It necessitates a measure of unvarnished introspection. Revisit moments in your life when you felt vibrantly alive, profoundly fulfilled. What were you engaged in? What was the surrounding milieu? These apex experiences often serve as revelations of your deepest values. Conversely, reflect on times when you experienced frustration, anger, or profound disappointment. What fundamental principles were being transgressed in those instances? Our most acute frustrations frequently stem from our values being disregarded or compromised. For example, persistent vexation when punctuality is disregarded might signal a core value of respect for time or reliability. A twinge of disquiet upon witnessing injustice could indicate an underlying value of fairness or compassion. It is also illuminating to examine what you admire in others. What qualities consistently draw your attention? When you observe integrity, kindness, or courage in action, what is it that resonates so deeply? These admired attributes often mirror your own latent values. Dedicate time to transcribe these observations. Refrain from self-censorship. Aim for a compilation of approximately 5 to 10 core values that feel most intrinsic to your identity. These are not mere abstract concepts. They are the fundamental building blocks of your card. Once you possess a clearer understanding of your values, you can begin to perceive their intricate connection to your aspirations. What kind of relationships do you truly seek? What life do you envision for yourself? Your values will naturally orient you toward these ends. If creativity is among your core values, you will likely gravitate toward relationships and pursuits that foster expression and imagination. If security is a paramount value, you may seek stability and predictability. Grasping this linkage is paramount for social matching, as it empowers you to recognize the essence of a true match, not merely an agreeable companion, but an individual whose values harmonize with yours, one who champions your authentic self. Now, let us turn our attention to your strengths and your peculiarities. Far too often, our focus fixates on what we perceive as our deficiencies, the areas where we feel ourselves wanting. We endeavor to conceal them, to smooth over their rough edges, to assimilate into the prevailing norm. But this is akin to attempting to play a card game with a hand devoid of substance. Your card is a singular amalgamation of strengths, talents, and, indeed, your distinctive eccentricities. These are not blemishes. They are defining attributes. They are the very elements that set you apart. Contemplate your innate talents. What do you accomplish with effortless grace that others find challenging? Are you an exceptional listener? Do you possess an inherent aptitude for organization? Are you naturally empathetic? Do you harbor a creative spark? These are all invaluable components of your card. And your quirks? They are the very spice of life. That peculiar cadence of your laughter, your singular fascination with a bygone era, your unconscious habit of humming when engrossed, these are the nuances that imbue your card with intrigue and memorability. Embracing these facets rather than attempting to suppress them is indispensable for authentic self-expression. When you permit yourself to be wholly and unapologetically yourself, you broadcast an unequivocal signal. This signal is the magnet for genuine connections, attracting individuals who appreciate your true card for precisely what it is. In the grand card game of life, every card serves a purpose. A joker does not aspire to be an ace. It possesses its own unique function. Similarly, your strengths and quirks are not intended for alteration to fit a prescribed mold. They are meant to be celebrated, for they are intrinsically woven into the unique card you hold. Let us pause for a moment and truly contemplate this. If you were to address these questions with unvarnished honesty, what would emerge? What are 3 core values that consistently guide your decisions, even when they are difficult? How did you discover these values, and how do they differentiate you from others? For me, one of my most profound values is authenticity. I discovered this years ago when I was attempting to be someone I was not. It felt akin to wearing shoes that were too small, a perpetual state of discomfort and pain. I realized that the pursuit of conformity was exacting a toll on my very sense of self. Authenticity distinguishes me because it compels me to perpetually strive for genuineness, even when it presents the more arduous path. Another value is connection. I unearthed this through my own experiences of solitude and my deep-seated yearning for meaningful relationships. This value propels me to seek out and nurture profound bonds with others, and it sets me apart because I prioritize quality over quantity in my social interactions. And a third value is growth. I recognize this by observing the stagnation I felt when I was not learning or evolving. This value impels me to ceaselessly pursue new knowledge and experiences, and it differentiates me because I am perpetually seeking avenues for self-improvement and the expansion of my understanding of myself and the world. If you had to describe your card to someone who knows nothing about you, based purely on your innate essence, and not your current achievements or roles, what would you say? What are the most defining characteristics of this card? If I were to characterize my card, I would liken it to a well-worn compass, endowed with a hidden compass rose that emits a soft luminescence in the darkness. Its defining attribute is its unwavering directionality, its inherent inclination toward comprehension and connection. It is not ostentatious, but it is undeniably reliable. Furthermore, it is a compass imbued with curiosity, perpetually eager to explore uncharted territories, to decipher diverse landscapes. It is a card that esteems depth over superficiality, and genuine understanding over facile agreement. It is a card that is inherently optimistic, harboring the conviction that even within the most labyrinthine terrains, a viable path can invariably be discovered. The defining characteristics are its directional integrity, its insatiable curiosity, its appreciation for profundity, and its quiet, unwavering optimism. In what ways have societal expectations or the deck you were dealt influenced your perception of yourself, and how can you begin to distinguish between these external influences and your authentic card? In my formative years, the deck I was dealt was heavily weighted towards achievement and outward markers of success. My family placed a premium on diligent effort and tangible outcomes. This imbued me with the belief that my inherent worth was inextricably linked to my accomplishments. For years, I pursued external validation, convinced that accumulating sufficient achievements would finally bring me a sense of inner contentment. I would observe others who appeared to have mastered the art of living, the seemingly perfect career, the idyllic existence, and engage in unfavorable comparisons, feeling that my own card was somehow deficient. This pervasive external influence led me to doubt my own instincts and passions if they deviated from a clearly defined trajectory toward success. To effect a distinction between these external influences and my authentic card, I was compelled to actively cultivate mindfulness and engage in rigorous self-reflection. I commenced a practice of journaling, posing questions not of obligation, but of desire. What do I truly wish to do? And what resonates as right for me? I began to attune myself to those subtle inner promptings, the sensations of exhilaration or trepidation that are so often drowned out by the cacophony of societal expectations. I also initiated a conscious process of interrogating the genesis of my ingrained beliefs. When the thought arose, "I am not good enough," I would ask myself, who instilled this notion? And on what basis should I lend it credence? It is a gradual process of unlearning ingrained patterns and acquiring new perspectives. It is about recognizing that while the deck may dictate the initial shuffle, you perpetually retain the agency to comprehend and play the cards you were genuinely dealt, not those you were instructed to possess. Once you commence a genuine exploration of the unique card you hold, with all its inherent strengths and subtle nuances, you are no longer navigating the game of life based on assumptions or the hand that others presume you should possess. You are poised to enter the social arena with an authentic self-awareness, equipped not only to comprehend the intricacies of the game but to 2. Finding your true self. We often perceive ourselves as finished canvases, complete and immutable. In truth, we are more akin to sculptures, perpetually shaped by the chisel of experience, the climate of our environment, and the presence of those who surround us. This ceaseless sculpting can, paradoxically, obscure the very essence of who we are beneath the layers. We don our disparate roles with practiced ease, the diligent employee, the convivial friend, the dutiful child. While each is a facet of our being, do they constitute the entirety of our narrative? Or are they merely masks, worn with such prolonged familiarity that the true visage beneath becomes a forgotten memory? The odyssey toward discovering one's authentic self, toward comprehending one's unique card in the grand tableau of existence, is fundamentally an act of looking beyond these personas and disguises. Your card represents the innermost stratum of your being. It transcends mere occupation or pastime. It is the bedrock of your core values, the silent yet profound convictions that resonate at a soul level. It is the wellspring of your deepest aspirations, the hushed murmurs of your heart that can easily be drowned out by the cacophony of daily life. It is your intrinsic perspective on the world, your singular essence. Conceive of it as the distinctive energy you imbue into the world, the inimitable flavor that sets you apart. This internal lodestar, this card, serves as our guide. It signals what aligns with our inner truth and what deviates, what invigorates us and what depletes us. When the contours of our card are sharply defined, our capacity to attract individuals and circumstances that genuinely resonate with us expands exponentially. Without this clarity, we become like a vessel adrift, buffeted by every social gust, attempting to embody what we surmise others desire. Societal pressures are remarkably adept at veiling our true selves. From the inception of our consciousness, we are subtly steered along prescribed paths. Education instills adherence to rules and performance within defined parameters. The professional realm frequently necessitates conformity to a corporate mold, elevating certain proficiencies while suppressing others. Even familial bonds, though often imbued with the purest intentions, can impose expectations regarding our identity, our achievements, and the trajectory of our lives. These expectations can coalesce into a pervasive haze, obscuring the clear outline of our own unique card. We may, in time, come to believe that the attributes we have adopted for acceptance are, in fact, our intrinsic nature. Consider, for instance, an individual naturally inclined toward quiet contemplation and profound, introspective dialogue. Yet, they emerge from a familial milieu that prizes vociferous, gregarious personalities. To garner approval, they might cultivate an outward demeanor of boisterous extroversion, a performance that ultimately exhausts them and feels profoundly inauthentic. They might then internalize the belief that loudness is the correct mode of being, and that their innate disposition for quiet reflection constitutes a deficiency. This exemplifies a classic scenario where a socially constructed persona eclipses the genuine card. The societal imperative in this instance is to conform to a perceived ideal of social success, characterized by volume and outward exuberance. Another pervasive pressure stems from the innate human yearning for validation. We all possess a fundamental desire to be liked and accepted. Consequently, we may adopt interests or espouse opinions that hold currency within our peer group, not out of genuine affinity, but from a deep-seated need to belong. We might profess an appreciation for a particular musical genre or cinematic work, not because it truly captivates us, but because it aligns with the prevailing sentiment, leaving us feeling, in reality, rather indifferent. This is not an act of deliberate deception, but rather an expression of a profound human impulse to connect. However, when this becomes a habitual response, it renders the arduous task of discerning our own authentic preferences and convictions nearly insurmountable. Our card becomes buried beneath strata of borrowed opinions and adopted enthusiasms. So how, then, do we begin the intricate process of disentanglement? How do we differentiate between a genuine aspiration that springs from our true self and one that has been externally acquired? This requires a conscious commitment, a dedication to rigorous self-examination. One of the most potent instruments at our disposal is self-reflection. This is not mere idle musing. It is a deliberate, focused endeavor of introspection. Journaling emerges as an exceptionally effective method for this pursuit. Procure a notebook and pen and pose questions to yourself. Is you concerned for grammatical perfection or profound revelations in the initial stages? Simply write. What activities possess the power to make you lose all track of time? When do you feel most vibrant and alive? What subjects naturally ignite your curiosity? What evokes a sense of quiet contentment, even in the absence of external stimulation? Undertake this exercise. For the span of 1 week, carry a small journal with you. Each day, record 3 instances that genuinely engendered a feeling of well-being or sparked your interest, however minor they may seem. This could encompass the nuanced flavor of your morning coffee, a moment of shared understanding with a colleague, or the ethereal quality of light illuminating a particular tree. Subsequently, at the close of the week, review your entries. Do discernible patterns emerge? Are there recurring themes? Or do the entries appear disparate, dictated solely by the day's events? This practice cultivates an acute awareness of your own internal signals. Mindfulness, too, offers an extraordinary pathway. It is the art of attending to the present moment without censure. While partaking in a meal, savor each morsel with deliberate attention. During a walk, feel the sensation of your feet upon the earth and observe the visual and auditory tapestry of your surroundings. This practice serves to liberate you from the incessant inner monologue, which is so frequently saturated with societal conditioning and anxieties about external perception. By embracing presence, you create an opening for the quieter, more authentic voice within to be heard. Soliciting feedback from trusted confidants can also prove invaluable, though the discernment in selecting these individuals is paramount. We are not advocating for those who will merely echo your preconceptions, nor for individuals whose vested interests predispose them to expect a particular portrayal of you. Instead, seek out those who genuinely perceive you, who grasp the concept of your unique card. This might be a sagacious friend who has known you for an extended period and can articulate your consistent attributes, or a mentor who champions your individuality. Pose questions such as, when do you observe me operating at my optimal capacity? Or what, in your estimation, distinguishes me? Their observations can furnish a vital external perspective on your internal landscape. Experimentation, too, plays a pivotal role. At times, our true inclinations and values remain elusive until they are put to the test. If you have long harbored the conviction that you lack creative aptitude, perhaps try a pottery class or a writing workshop. If you have consistently believed yourself too reserved for public speaking, consider joining a local Toastmasters group. The objective is not mastery, but rather the careful observation of your own responses. How does it feel? Does it ignite a spark within you, or does it feel like an onerous obligation? These exploratory ventures serve as subtle tests for your card. They facilitate the discovery of what genuinely resonates with your authentic self. The bedrock of all these endeavors lies in the comprehension of your values. These are the fundamental tenets that underpin your beliefs, the guiding principles that inform your actions and decisions. In the long run, they are non-negotiable. Shared pastimes may be conducive to initiating dialogue, but shared values forge the bonds of profound and enduring compatibility. Consider this. You might both find pleasure in hiking, but if one individual cherishes adventure and risk-taking, while the other prioritizes safety and predictability above all else, this divergence in values can precipitate significant discord down the line, irrespective of a mutual fondness for the mountains. What then are some manifestations of core values? They can encompass concepts such as honesty, an unwavering commitment to truth, even in the face of adversity. Kindness, the practice of extending compassion and empathy to others. Growth, a persistent aspiration for continuous learning and self-improvement. Freedom, the imperative for independence and self-determination. Security, a deep-seated desire for stability and a sense of safety. Creativity, the innate urge for self-expression and innovation. Community, the profound significance of belonging and interconnectedness. Adventure, an ardent embrace of novel experiences and challenges. When you possess a clear understanding of your own core values, your perception of what constitutes essential elements in a relationship becomes considerably sharper. If community holds a paramount place among your values, you will instinctively gravitate toward friendships and partnerships that foster a sense of belonging. If freedom is your highest priority, you will be drawn to individuals who honor your autonomy. This is not about seeking an exact replica of yourself. It is about identifying individuals whose fundamental values either align with yours or, at the very least, complement them in a constructive manner. This alignment is what renders your card truly recognizable and appreciated by another. In the absence of self-awareness regarding our values, we frequently find ourselves compromising on matters of profound personal importance. We might acquiesce to a remunerative position that fails to align with our yearning for creative fulfillment, or enter into a relationship that appears superficially sound but lacks a shared sense of purpose. It is here that the concept of social matching assumes critical importance. If your card remains indistinct, you become more susceptible to accepting an arrangement that is not truly yours simply by virtue of its availability and its confinement within the often limited social spheres society has delineated for you. The process of uncovering one's true self and apprehending one's card is not a singular event, but rather an ongoing journey of exploration and refinement. The world is in perpetual flux, and so too are we. However, the more assiduously we engage in this internal work, the more robust our foundation becomes. We develop a greater resilience to external pressures and a heightened confidence in our own identity. This clarity transcends mere personal fulfillment. It is about equipping ourselves to navigate the card game of life with increased intention and a significantly elevated probability of forging genuine, compatible connections. Once you begin to discern the contours of your own card, your fundamental values, your authentic desires, and the very essence of your being, you are no longer merely adrift on the currents of social interaction. You possess an internal compass, a more refined understanding of the types of connections that will truly resonate. This clarity, however, represents only the inaugural step. The subsequent challenge lies in comprehending how the external world, with its pre-established social architectures, often contrives to impede that very act of presenting your card, let alone discovering others who recognize its unique imprint. This leads us to the ensuing, indispensable facet of the game, navigating the social maze. 3. What makes a good match? Often, in the quest for companionship, be it a partner, a confidant, or simply a kindred spirit to share a moment of levity, we encounter a disquieting sense of dissonance, a feeling that the pieces simply do not align. It is akin to sifting through a deck of cards, drawing one after another, yet finding none that truly feel destined for our hand. This prompts the inevitable inquiry: what, then, constitutes a genuine connection? Is it merely a shared predilection for certain films or a mutual appreciation for culinary delights? While such commonalities offer a pleasant surface, the profound essence of a truly resonant bond lies immeasurably deeper. It is the intricate understanding of one's own unique tapestry, interwoven with the discovery of another whose distinct threads, when brought together, weave a pattern of extraordinary beauty. Reflect upon the nascent stages of your comprehension of life's allegorical cards. Each individual possesses a singular hand, a unique disposition. Yet, the notion of a good match transcends the mere replication of one's own holdings. It is, rather, the artful discovery of how these disparate cards can interact, forming a collective hand that possesses a strength and elegance surpassing the sum of its individual components. It is the pursuit of a harmonious composition, not a perfect echo. Consider, for instance, a card embodying profound loyalty and an unwavering commitment to family. This represents a cornerstone of your identity. Alongside this, you might possess a card signifying a fervent embrace of adventure and a ceaseless curiosity for the novel. Both are integral facets of your personal deck. In the pursuit of connection, the inclination is often to gravitate towards superficial congruities. Perhaps a shared passion for hiking or a similar vein of humor emerges. These are akin to discovering cards of the same suit. They share a commonality, a promising preamble. But what elevates a connection from mere compatibility to something truly exceptional? It is the deliberate exploration of the deeper qualities inherent in one's cards. That unwavering loyalty, for example, is not simply a preference, it is a fundamental value. It speaks to a nature that stands firm with others, that believes in the enduring power of commitment. Now, imagine encountering an individual whose own card similarly cherishes loyalty. This forms a potent resonance, does it not? It is akin to finding another card of the same exalted rank, a deep, resonant accord. However, a truly exceptional match can also arise from the complementary nature of one's cards, from discovering an individual whose presence amplifies your own inherent strengths. Perhaps your profound sense of family is harmoniously balanced by someone whose card champions independence and a passionate pursuit of their own endeavors. This is not a divergence, it is a magnificent synergy. Their autonomy might inspire you to explore your own latent interests with greater fervor, just as your grounding influence might offer them a sense of stability. They may not hold the identical family card, but their own might carry a potent element of support or encouragement, perfectly balancing and enriching yours. This is the very crucible of social matching, the discernment of potential for growth and mutual uplift, rather than a mere reflection of sameness. This underscores the paramount importance of understanding your own card. Without a clear grasp of your intrinsic values, how can one possibly ascertain what to seek in another? It is akin to attempting to locate a specific culinary ingredient without possessing a clear vision of the final dish's intended flavor profile. One might haphazardly select whatever appears appealing, yet it may not be what is truly required. Therefore, let us delve more profoundly. What are the most deeply ingrained aspects of your card, the elements that are unequivocally non-negotiable for a relationship that is both joyous and profoundly fulfilling? These are not the ephemeral preferences that shift with the seasons, nor are they the concessions one might make to foster a sense of belonging. These are the very bedrock of your being. Contemplate your core values. What guiding principles steer the course of your life? Is integrity among them? If so, you will invariably seek a partner or friend whose own card also bears the indelible mark of truthfulness. Without this, the foundation of your connection will remain perpetually precarious, akin to a structure built upon shifting sands. Does ambition fuel your spirit? Do you harbor aspirations and objectives toward which you tirelessly strive? Then you may discover immense satisfaction in forging a bond with someone who likewise possesses an inherent drive and a clear sense of purpose. This is not a competition, it is a mutual inspiration, a shared understanding of the inner fire that propels you forward. What of your fundamental needs? Each of us requires certain elements to feel nurtured and cherished. For some, this manifests as a profound need for emotional intimacy and vulnerability, a desire to be perceived and understood at the deepest level. For others, it might be the stimulation of intellectual discourse, conversations that provoke thought, ideas that ignite curiosity. Some find their vitality ignited by adventure and spontaneity, while others thrive within the comforting embrace of routine and predictability. A truly auspicious match is one that addresses these intrinsic needs. It is facile to become ensnared by superficial desires. One might covet a partner of a certain stature, or one who possesses a particular vehicle, or one who occupies a specific professional role. These are mere wants, and while not inherently negative, a truly profound connection is forged upon the bedrock of fulfilled needs. If your profound need is for emotional solace, and you are partnered with someone who merely caters to your want for shared pastimes, you may derive enjoyment from those activities, but a palpable void will persist during times of tribulation. It is here that many falter, acquiescing to connections that satisfy superficial desires while leaving their deepest needs unmet. Societal pressures can exert a particularly insidious influence in this regard. We inhabit a world that frequently advocates for compromise. Witnessing friends enter into matrimony, or feeling the inexorable march of time, can render the notion of holding out for a truly exceptional connection seemingly unattainable, even imprudent. We are often counseled to temper our expectations, to find contentment in what is merely good enough. But what, truly, does good enough signify? More often than not, it implies an acceptance of a connection that deviates from our most profound values or fails to address our core necessities. It is a compromise that can engender a subtle, pervasive unhappiness, a gnawing sense of incompleteness. The very structures of our society, the years spent in shared academic environments, the daily interactions within the same professional sphere can constrict our social landscapes, making our perceived options appear distressingly limited. When our perceived choices dwindle, the pressure to settle intensifies. We begin to rationalize that perhaps this is the zenith of our potential, that our own card is insufficient to attract someone truly remarkable. This is a perilous precipice. For when we settle, we do not merely compromise on a person, we often diminish ourselves. We may intentionally dim our own luminescence to create an illusion of equilibrium, or we may suppress our own needs to circumvent discord. And all the while, the possibility of discovering a connection that is genuinely extraordinary and deeply resonant recedes further into the distance. How, then, do we resist this pervasive pressure? It commences with a profound internal metamorphosis, self-acceptance. One must wholeheartedly embrace one's own card, with all its unique attributes, its inherent strengths, and indeed, its perceived imperfections. If one is perpetually striving to embody an persona that is not authentic, or if certain facets of one's identity are met with shame, one will inevitably be drawn to individuals who mirror these very insecurities. This can manifest as a partnership characterized by incessant criticism, or an entanglement with someone perpetually in need of fixing, as one projects their own unfulfilled needs onto them. However, when one fully embraces their authentic self, when the value of one's own card is deeply understood and appreciated, a different energy emanates. Discernment becomes sharper. There is no desperate yearning for external validation. Rather, a confident quest for an individual who genuinely complements one's own being. This self-acceptance illuminates precisely what is needed and what one has to offer. It is akin to polishing one's own card until it gleams, thereby facilitating its recognition by others possessing compatible cards. Let us consider this from an alternative perspective. Recall a time when you may have felt compelled to force a connection despite an underlying sense of unease. Perhaps it was a friendship that felt perpetually one-sided, or a romantic overture that failed to ignite any spark. You might have attempted to rationalize it as good enough. Your focus might have gravitated towards shared interests, such as an appreciation for the same musical ensemble or a parallel sense of humor. These are the superficial congruities, the same suit cards. But what if that friend consistently failed to offer a listening ear during moments of distress? What if that romantic interest habitually belittled you even under the guise of jest? These are indicators that your deeper needs for emotional support or for genuine respect are being systematically unmet. The societal whisper might murmur, "At least you have company," or "It is preferable to solitude." Yet, this whisper is a deceptive fabrication that obstructs the truth of what a truly profound connection can be. The genuinely exceptional match is not solely predicated on shared commonalities. It is about a deeper resonance. It is about the alignment of values, the fulfillment of needs, and the way in which individual strengths coalesce to create a beautiful synergy. It is about discovering someone who does not merely tolerate your card, but who truly perceives its inherent value and is enriched by its presence. This is why a profound understanding of one's own identity serves as the immutable foundation for finding an exceptional match. If you remain ignorant of your most profound values, your fundamental needs, your unique strengths and aspirations, you are, in essence, navigating the intricate card game of life with your vision obscured. You might, by sheer fortune, stumble upon a fortuitous alignment, but it is far more probable that you will find yourself holding a hand fraught with discord, or worse, a hand to which you have been coerced into submission. The societal frameworks that constrain our social spheres are undeniably real. The pressure to compromise is pervasive. However, the power to define what constitutes a good match for you resides within your own self-comprehension. It is about recognizing that your singular card possesses intrinsic worth, and that other cards exist which will not only harmonize with yours, but elevate it, forging a connection that is profoundly gratifying, genuinely supportive, and unequivocally joyous. It is about understanding that holding out for that authentic connection, that true resonance, is not an act of capriciousness, but one of profound wisdom. It is about recognizing that rejection is merely an indication of incompatibility, not a reflection of your intrinsic worth. And that, my friend, is the initial, most vital step in engaging with this extraordinary game of life and discovering your true counterpart. Once we begin to truly apprehend the intricate composition of our own card and what constitutes a genuine, synergistic match, the subsequent critical phase involves actively seeking out arenas wherein this clarified identity can be presented to the world. For it is only by confidently exhibiting who we are and what we seek that we can commence to attract those who resonate, transcending the confines of our established social circles and entering a realm of authentic connection. 4. Challenges in knowing yourself. We often navigate existence with a comforting illusion of self-knowledge. We believe we grasp our preferences and aversions, our aspirations and anxieties. Yet, this perceived familiarity can be akin to a well-trodden path, so ingrained that we cease to question its destination. The profound truth is that truly comprehending one's essence, the inner workings that propel us, and our genuine desires, represents one of life's most formidable undertakings, particularly when seeking profound human connection. Before we can confidently present our unique card to the world, we must first ascertain its true face, its intrinsic nature. Many of us journey through life with a self-concept sculpted by external forces rather than an inner compass. From our earliest years, we are inundated with visions of success, definitions of happiness, and prescribed identities. Parents, educators, peers, and the relentless tide of media collectively forge an archetype of the desirable individual. These messages are absorbed, and subtly, almost imperceptibly, our identities begin to coalesce around them. We might gravitate toward a particular profession due to its perceived prestige, adopt popular pastimes, or strive to embody a relationship ideal showcased to us. This fosters a mirage of self-understanding. We may genuinely believe we relish these pursuits or desire these outcomes, but in reality, we are merely enacting a role penned by others. It is akin to grasping a deck of cards, assuming a king at a glance, only to discover it is merely a jack. The superficial resemblance deceives, but the fundamental difference renders it incapable of playing the game as anticipated. While the immediate allure of external validation can offer a fleeting sense of belonging, it leaves us clutching a borrowed card. When we attempt to forge a social match with this imposter, a pervasive disconnect often emerges, a subtle yet persistent feeling of being out of place, for the persona we project is a fabrication, not our true self. This leads us to a more profound obstacle, the dread of confronting the hidden self. An honest introspection is rarely a comfortable endeavor. It frequently necessitates facing aspects of ourselves we would prefer to keep concealed. Perhaps it is a past transgression we carry with shame, a deep-seated insecurity that breeds inadequacy, or even personality traits that defy the polished facade we maintain. These can manifest as specters within our own minds, and our instinct is to recoil. It demands considerable fortitude to endure this disquiet, to systematically dismantle the defenses we have painstakingly erected over years. Consider Sarah's predicament. Sarah always presumed she desired a vivacious, adventurous partner, influenced by her social circle and her parents' consistent commendation of her easygoing nature. Yet, in her romantic pursuits, she found herself perpetually drained and under duress. She attempted to force spontaneity and sociability, but it felt as though she were squeezing her feet into shoes sizes too small. It was only through solitary contemplation, through journaling and introspection, that she unearthed her true yearning for a companion who was serene, contemplative, and content with quiet evenings at home, mirroring her own disposition. Her fear of appearing unremarkable or lacking ambition had obscured her genuine need for tranquility and profound connection. This apprehension of confronting uncomfortable realities acts as a formidable bulwark, rendering us more inclined to embrace a superficial understanding of ourselves than to embark on the potentially tumultuous, yet ultimately liberating, journey of self-discovery. We become adept at presenting a curated version of ourselves, one we believe will garner approval, but in doing so, we sever ties with our authentic core. This void of a clearly defined identity also cultivates a fertile ground for the settling mentality. When our values, deepest desires, and sources of aliveness remain nebulous, we are significantly more susceptible to accepting what is readily available. This extends beyond merely accepting an uninspiring job or a superficial friendship. It encompasses accepting a more manageable, less demanding version of ourselves. If our true card remains unrevealed, how can we possibly discern what constitutes a genuine match? We might encounter someone within our existing social sphere, perhaps a colleague or a mutual acquaintance, and rationalize, they are perfectly pleasant and it would be simpler than starting anew. This is the essence of settling. It is compromising for a less than ideal alignment, because the prospect of finding a truly compatible connection feels too daunting or too uncertain. The underlying cause of this compromise is frequently an unacknowledged struggle with self-knowledge. Without knowing our own card, we are incapable of articulating what we require in another card to form a winning hand. We may acquiesce on fundamental aspects of our being, accepting a relationship or friendship that fails to truly nourish our spirit, simply because we have neglected to ascertain what nourishment truly signifies for us. This is a direct consequence of our inability to effectively show our card, as we are unaware of the card we actually hold. Furthermore, our identities are not immutable sculptures, but dynamic, living entities that evolve and mature. One of the persistent challenges in knowing ourselves lies in our propensity to cling to outdated self-perceptions. We may have solidified a version of ourselves years ago and remain steadfastly attached to that image. Life unfolds, experiences mold us, we acquire new knowledge, and we transform. Yet, if we neglect to pause and acknowledge this growth, we risk presenting an antiquated, faded card to the world. Imagine encountering someone new and portraying yourself as the shy, introverted individual you were in adolescence, despite having since cultivated greater confidence and a newfound enjoyment of social engagements. The other person may respond to this outdated iteration of you, fostering a misunderstanding. Alternatively, you might find yourself feeling misconstrued within an existing relationship because your partner continues to interact with the you of yesteryear, not the evolved you who has grown and changed. This disconnect arises from our failure to consciously embrace our own metamorphosis. Our identity is in constant flux, and if we do not engage in regular self-assessment, we risk operating with an obsolete internal map, leading to friction and a pervasive sense of disharmony with our own lives and the people within them. This underscores why ongoing self-reflection is not a singular task, but a perpetual voyage. Consequently, what are the prevalent societal scripts or expectations that warp an individual's perception of their own identity, and how do these narratives impede their ability to discern their true card? The catalog is extensive and varied, yet certain themes emerge with particular prominence. There is the script of the successful professional, which posits that one's worth is inextricably linked to their job title, remuneration, or accomplishments. This can engender the belief that one ought to be driven by ambition and career advancement, even if the heart yearns for a more tranquil existence centered on creativity or community engagement. Then, there is the script of the ideal partner or ideal parent, often dictated by the idealized portrayals found in romantic comedies or idealized family narratives. This can lead individuals to believe they must consistently be nurturing, self-sacrificing, and conflict-averse, suppressing their own needs and desires. To conform to this mold, media wields considerable influence in this domain, perpetually bombarding us with images of what happiness, beauty, and success appear to be, thereby establishing a narrow paradigm to which many feel compelled to adhere. For instance, a young woman might internalize the notion that her card should be one of effortless allure and widespread popularity, mirroring the pervasive media narrative. She may fail to recognize that her true card resides in quiet intellect and a profound thirst for knowledge, qualities that are less overtly celebrated in the mainstream. These scripts are insidious because they masquerade as common sense, as the natural order of things. They obstruct our ability to identify our true card by offering a readily available, yet ultimately counterfeit, substitute. We assimilate these external definitions as our own, mistaking societal expectation for our intrinsic truth, and in doing so, we remain ignorant of the unique confluence of qualities, values, and desires that constitute our authentic selves. Beyond the apprehension of external judgment, what internal psychological mechanisms actively deter individuals from engaging in honest self-reflection and truly knowing themselves? It transcends mere fear of others' opinions. It encompasses our dread of our own self-perception. One potent mechanism is cognitive dissonance. This refers to the mental discomfort experienced when holding two contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or when our convictions clash with our actions. If we have long harbored a particular self-concept only to discover something about ourselves that contradicts it, perhaps we find ourselves more adventurous than we believed or less driven by career aspirations. Dissonance arises. To alleviate this discomfort, we may unconsciously disregard the new information, rationalize our existing beliefs, or simply avoid contemplating it altogether. Another mechanism is self-deception. This is a more proactive process wherein we deliberately mislead ourselves, often to safeguard our ego or preserve a desired self-image. We might insist we are content in a situation when we are not, or deny wanting something we desperately crave. This is akin to donning a disguise even from ourselves. Then there are defense mechanisms, such as denial, a refusal to acknowledge reality, or repression, the unconscious expulsion of unpleasant memories or emotions from conscious awareness. These function as psychological fortresses, preventing us from accessing certain facets of ourselves. For example, an individual who endured a challenging upbringing might have repressed memories of feeling neglected. Consequently, they might believe they possess no issues with attachment, as the painful experiences are relegated to their unconscious. This prevents them from understanding their subsequent struggles in forging deep, trusting relationships and, by extension, from identifying their true card for connection. These internal psychological barriers are formidable. They not only render self-reflection arduous, but actively steer us away from it, ensuring that we remain somewhat obscured from our own inner depths. This internal haze of self-uncertainty is precisely what renders the navigation of the external world of social connections so fraught with peril. When we lack a clear understanding of our true selves, we are less equipped to discern who might represent a genuine match. The subsequent step, therefore, is to explore the practical strategies and shifts in mindset essential for embarking on the crucial process of uncovering that authentic self, thereby transforming the challenge of self-knowledge into the power of self-discovery. Chapter 2. Building Connections. 1. Breaking Societal Barriers. Life, as we perceive it, often unfolds as if we are seated at a table, dealt a specific hand of cards. These are distributed at our inception, and for the most part, we navigate our existence with the hand we are given. Consider the trajectory. From the nascent stages of schooling, we are sorted. We are placed in classrooms alongside peers of similar age and proximity. Adolescence ushers in high school, where affiliations coalesce around shared enthusiasms, or sometimes merely shared corridors. Subsequently, many venture into the professional arena, dedicating their days to colleagues who, while potentially congenial, often tread the same professional paths, confronting analogous challenges. Our neighborhoods, our fitness centers, even the digital enclaves we inhabit, these tend to mirror back individuals already akin to us. It is as though society has ordained our seating arrangements, and predominantly we remain in our designated spots. This ingrained pattern of assigned seating is not inherently detrimental on its surface. It cultivates comfort, familiarity, and a profound sense of belonging. We grasp the implicit rules governing our immediate circle. We anticipate the nature of the cards likely to be played. However, herein lies the pivotal and, indeed, substantial drawback. This solace can transform into a gilded cage. When our interactions are confined to those already within our established orbit, our repertoire of potential connections becomes exceedingly constricted. We are privy to but a fraction of the myriad cards held within the grand deck of humanity. Consequently, we may never encounter an individual whose card could be an ideal complement to our own, simply because they occupy a different table, a different room, or indeed an entirely different edifice. Reflect upon the sheer immensity of human diversity. There exist souls whose passions could ignite yours, whose viewpoints could profoundly challenge your assumptions, and whose life journeys could offer a depth of understanding you have yet to conceive. Yet, if your social sphere is circumscribed by the familiar countenances of your workplace, a book club exclusively devoted to mysteries, or a running cohort solely preoccupied with marathon training, you are forfeiting the vast majority of these nascent connections. These societal frameworks, educational institutions, professional environments, even our residential arrangements, function as potent, unseen ramparts, confining us to predictable social landscapes. They foster echo chambers where our existing beliefs and experiences are perpetually amplified, diminishing the opportunity for genuine surprise and delight at encountering someone distinct, someone who might possess the missing piece of your personal mosaic. This brings us to a pervasive misconception, the notion that our present social milieu represents the immutable boundary of our potential connections. We become so accustomed to the individuals surrounding us that this state of affairs appears to be an unalterable reality. We rationalize, well, I've met people through my work, and that's where I'll continue to meet them, or my friends are all avid hikers, so that's the type of person I'll encounter. This is the seductive illusion of natural social circles at play. It is not that these existing connections lack value, but rather, they are frequently the product of circumstance and the prevailing societal organization, rather than a true representation of the entire spectrum of compatible individuals. We have been placed at a specific table, and we erroneously assume that no other tables exist. We accept the cards dealt to us at this table as the sole ones worth playing. And when our social arena is so circumscribed, a subtle yet insidious trap begins to ensnare us. The trap of compromise. If your interactions are limited to a scant handful of individuals, and you seek companionship or a romantic partner, the pressure to make do with what is readily available can become overwhelming. You may find yourself overlooking significant incompatibilities as the alternative, continuing the search within a minuscule, seemingly barren landscape feels daunting. You might console yourself with phrases like, "They're pleasant enough," or "We have some common ground," or "It's preferable to solitude." This is not an indictment of personal failing, it is a direct consequence of being confined to a restricted social ecosystem. You are not exhibiting fastidiousness, you are acting pragmatically within the imposed constraints. You are attempting to forge a connection with the limited hand you possess, and because that hand is so meager, you ultimately settle for a card that is merely adequate rather than one that is genuinely an ideal match. This tendency to settle, born from limited exposure, perpetuates the cycle. It reinforces the belief that this restricted pool is all that exists, diminishing our inclination to look beyond it. The true challenge, therefore, lies in recognizing that these societal structures are not immutable laws of nature. They are, in fact, merely rules of the game that we can learn to scrutinize and, more critically, to transcend. Consider the multitude of unwritten social conventions we habitually adhere to without conscious thought. We are implicitly or explicitly advised against engaging with strangers. We are encouraged to associate with our own kind, whether that pertains to our profession, our age cohort, or our socioeconomic stratum. We often perceive networking solely as a means to professional advancement, rather than as a pathway to genuine human connection. These are the invisible impediments. They are the societal directives that dictate whom we should and should not interact with, and how we ought to comport ourselves in such encounters. But what if we resolved to engage in a different game? What if we deliberately chose to disregard these self-imposed limitations? This is where the capacity to dismantle societal barriers truly resides. It entails making a conscious decision to deal ourselves into new games. It means understanding that your workplace is not the sole venue for forging new connections, that your neighborhood is not the exclusive wellspring of friendship, and that your existing social circle does not represent the final frontier of your potential relationships. It involves a deliberate choice to broaden your horizons, to venture beyond the comfort zone that society has so meticulously curated. Let us delve more deeply into how these societal institutions actively construct and reinforce these barriers. Take, for instance, the realm of education. From kindergarten through university, we are ensconced in age-segregated environments. We are frequently grouped by academic aptitude or chosen disciplines. While this offers pedagogical advantages, it also means that our formative years are predominantly spent interacting with individuals virtually identical to ourselves in terms of age and life stage. The psychological ramifications of this are profound. It can foster a constricted worldview, a limited comprehension of diverse life experiences, and a propensity to categorize individuals based on superficial commonalities. Upon transitioning into the professional world, the pattern frequently persists. We find ourselves surrounded by individuals in comparable roles, grappling with analogous pressures. Digital platforms, too, can contribute to this phenomenon. While offering extensive reach, algorithms often curate content and suggest connections that align with our pre-existing preferences, further solidifying our echo chambers. These structures do not merely passively restrict our interactions, they actively sculpt our social landscape, rendering it seemingly natural and unavoidable to remain within our assigned boundaries. The psychological effect is that we begin to internalize the belief that these are the only available cards, and anyone outside of them is simply not a participant in our game. And what are the tangible repercussions of settling for good enough relationships due to this restricted social pool? They are far-reaching. When we settle, we are not merely foregoing a potentially superior friendship or romantic partnership. We are also forfeiting personal growth. Genuinely distinct perspectives possess the capacity to challenge our assumptions, expand our understanding, and enable us to perceive the world through novel lenses. When we settle, we deny ourselves these invaluable opportunities. We may find ourselves in relationships devoid of profound intellectual or emotional resonance, leading to a persistent sense of isolation, even amidst company. This can foster dissatisfaction and an undercurrent of quiet desperation. More critically, settling perpetuates the cycle of societal confinement. If we are not actively seeking new and diverse connections, we are reinforcing the notion that our current social circle is entirely adequate. This renders us less likely to exert the effort to break free on subsequent occasions, thereby solidifying the limitations that society has imposed. It is a self-reinforcing loop. Limited exposure precipitates compromise, and compromise entrenches the belief in limited exposure. This is why cultivating an awareness of and actively challenging these societal rules of the game is of paramount importance. We must consciously pose the questions: why am I exclusively conversing with individuals from my workplace? Or is it truly accurate to assume I can only find friends at the gym? The answer, unequivocally, is no. These are societal constructs, not inherent truths. When we apprehend this reality, we reclaim the power to redefine these rules for ourselves. It requires the courage to reveal your card to a wider audience, to engage in dialogue with those who may appear different, and to proactively expand the pool of potential connections. This is not an endorsement of recklessness or forced interactions. It is about a mindful, intentional amplification of our social reach. It is about comprehending that every new individual encountered represents a freshly drawn card, a nascent possibility for authentic connection, a fresh opportunity for social matching. The next time you experience a sense of stagnation in your social life, or feel you are not encountering the right individuals, pause and observe your surroundings. Do you perceive a diverse array of people, or are you primarily encountering reflections of yourself and your immediate environment? Are you interacting with individuals from varied walks of life, possessing different backgrounds and perspectives? If the prevailing answer is no, then you are likely experiencing the subtle yet potent effects of societal barriers. The encouraging news is that you possess the agency to dismantle them. It commences with the recognition that society's assigned seating is not a life sentence. Your social universe need not be confined to the table where you were initially placed. Once we acknowledge the artificial barriers that societal structures erect around our social lives, the subsequent crucial step involves actively and intentionally commencing their deconstruction. This is not about serendipitous encounters, but rather about a strategic expansion of our social interactions, a deliberate endeavor to deal ourselves into new games and reveal our cards to a broader world, thereby paving the way for the forthcoming chapter, The Art of the Approach. 2. The Art of Compromise. We often yearn for an ideal alignment, do we not? A sensation akin to discovering a puzzle piece that surrenders to its place with such exquisite ease. It feels sculpted for us alone. In the grand game of existence, it is facile to become ensnared by the notion of unearthing that solitary soul, whose card perfectly mirrors our own. We envision a life where everything simply converges, without discord, without impediment, merely pure, unlabricated accord. Yet, herein lies a subtle truth, a verity oft whispered rather than proclaimed. The most profound and enduring connections seldom spring from absolute, unwavering perfection. They unfurl from something altogether more intricate, more inherently human. They are cultivated through the art of concession. Consider this. We are each endowed with singular cards, it is true, and some cards undeniably possess a greater affinity for others. That initial resonance, that sense of recognition upon encountering another whose spirit intrinsically aligns with yours, is a magnificent phenomenon. It is the exhilaration of perceiving a potential kindred spirit, the harbinger of a shared trajectory. But as we venture beyond the confines of our accustomed orbits, the familiar lecture halls, the predictable professional spheres, the comfortable, routine society so often prescribes, we begin to apprehend the sheer multiplicity of cards in play. And what, pray tell, do we discover? that no two are precisely identical. Not a single one. This is not an inherent defect in the grand design, nor an indictment of a less than auspicious hand. It is, quite simply, the irreducible complexity of our shared humanity. Each of us is a complex tapestry intricately woven from innumerable threads of experience, conviction, peculiarity, and inclination. It is an impossibility for any two tapestries, however harmoniously they may complement one another, to be an exact replica. Thus, when we anticipate our companions or partners to be flawless reflections of ourselves, or to concur with us on every conceivable point, we are inadvertently paving the road to disillusionment. We are pursuing an ephemeral phantasm, and in so doing, we risk forfeiting genuinely remarkable connections that lie within our immediate grasp. It is here that the insidious pressure to settle can insinuate itself, particularly when our social constellations are confined. Should your encounters be exclusively confined to those within your immediate neighborhood or your particular departmental unit, the reservoir of potential affiliations can feel decidedly limited. You might find yourself contemplating, well, they are not precisely what I envisioned, but within this restricted cadre they represent the most promising prospect, thus I ought to endeavor to make it work. Such a mindset can precipitate a compromise on matters of genuine import, on those elements that constitute the very essence of your being. And that, my friends, is not compromise, that is resignation, a path that too frequently culminates in a quiet corrosion of the spirit and a pervasive sense of being unseen. However, let us now discourse upon compromise, the authentic iteration. The art of compromise does not entail the abdication of your most cherished values or the alteration of the fundamental essence of your card. It is not about feigning an affinity for that which you do not embrace, nor about disregarding the whispers of your intuition. Rather, conceive of compromise as a cultivated skill, an elegant choreography of negotiation and mutual understanding. It is the act of articulating, very well, I comprehend your perspective, and I acknowledge your preference. How might we devise a mutually agreeable resolution? It is an exercise in adaptability, in a willingness to yield, not to shatter. Envision Sarah and Ben. Sarah thrives in the nascent hours of dawn, cherishing the tranquil solitude of witnessing the sun's ascent, a warm beverage in hand. Ben, conversely, is a creature of the night, his most inspired insights often emerging beneath the moonlit firmament. Their cards possess divergent cadences. If Sarah were to insist upon rousing Ben at the crack of dawn each day, or if Ben were to expect Sarah to remain awake throughout the nocturnal hours with him, their bond would inevitably be subjected to strain. But should they discover a harmonious compromise, their disparities could transmute into a wellspring of strength. Perhaps Sarah relishes her serene mornings, and Ben his late vigils, and they simply greet each other with warmth and a shared repast at an hour that suits them both. Perhaps they orchestrate special weekend mornings for joint pursuits, or Ben consents to an incrementally earlier bedtime on a designated evening each week. This is not settling, it is the deliberate construction of a bridge between their individual worlds. They are leveraging their understanding of each other's cards to forge a shared dominion wherein both can flourish. This is the very embodiment of social alignment, not merely discovering compatibility, but actively nurturing it. Salubrious compromise is predicated upon the identification of resolutions for quotidian divergences that do not necessitate the sacrifice of one's core identity or fundamental needs. It represents the distinction between deciding upon a dining destination and determining the overarching objectives of one's shared existence. Choosing between Italian and Thai cuisine? That presents an exemplary opportunity for compromise. One individual proposes Italian, the other Thai. They might resort to a coin toss, alternate choices, or perhaps discover an establishment that offers both. It is a minor adjustment, a small gesture of consideration that fortifies their connection. Conversely, when the act of compromise begins to feel like a perpetual relinquishment of one's own well-being, one's principles, or one's sense of self, That is a salient warning signal. If Sarah felt compelled to perpetually forego her cherished quiet mornings, and this engendered profound unhappiness within her, that would constitute settling. If Ben felt coerced into suppressing his creative ardor and harbored resentment as a consequence, that too would be settling. Unhealthy resignation transpires when one party consistently surrenders that which is significant to them, or when fundamental values collide and one individual is expected to abandon theirs. This frequently occurs when we perceive ourselves as ensnared within restricted social confines and erroneously believe this to be the sole avenue for connection. The overarching thesis of this discourse posits that by actively broadening our social engagements, we mitigate the imperative to accept deleterious compromises. We thereby augment our prospects of encountering an individual whose card not only exhibits compatibility but also commands sufficient respect for your own card to engage in genuine compromise. So, how do we refine our proficiency in this art of concession? It all hinges upon a single, indispensable element: communication. And not merely any form of discourse, but communication that is forthright, unvarnished, and profoundly empathetic. It entails learning to articulate one's own needs and desires with clarity, devoid of recrimination or accusation. Instead of proffering, you invariably insist on having your way, endeavor to articulate, "I feel somewhat unheard when we arrive at decisions, and I would deeply appreciate it if we could devise a method to ensure both our preferences are duly considered." It also necessitates cultivating the prowess of an accomplished listener. Truly listening, not merely awaiting one's opportune moment to interject, but actively striving to apprehend the other individual's vantage point, their emotional landscape, and their underlying motivations. When a friend confides their feeling of being overwhelmed, empathy calls for an attempt to vicariously experience their distress, rather than precipitously offering solutions or drawing parallels to your own circumstances. It is about validating their sentiments, articulating, "I hear you. That sounds profoundly challenging." This fosters a secure environment wherein both individuals feel acknowledged and esteemed. When our communication is efficacious, we are better equipped to discern the points of congruence within our cards and the areas of divergence. This empowers us to navigate those divergences with grace. For instance, should you be seeking a romantic partner and discover that they possess a markedly disparate approach to fiscal management than your own, that represents a significant chasm. If one of you is an exuberant spender and the other a prudent saver, and neither is inclined to yield or comprehend the other's viewpoint, that constitutes a fundamental dissonance. This is not a matter amenable to facile compromise, such as selecting a restaurant. It is an indicator that your core values may be too disparate to forge a lasting union. In such circumstances, acknowledging this incongruity is a manifestation of healthy social matching. It is the recognition that while you may derive pleasure from each other's company, your respective paths may not be destined to coalesce entirely. However, if, for example, you discover that a potential friend harbors a passion for a pursuit you have never undertaken, and you harbor reservations about immersing yourself in it, this is where compromise and communication truly illuminate the path. You can articulate your trepidations. "I am somewhat apprehensive about venturing into something novel. It feels somewhat outside my comfort zone," whilst simultaneously remaining receptive to their enthusiasm. "But I am willing to give it a try if you are there to guide me." They, in turn, can extend reassurance and support. This cultivates an avenue for growth, allowing both of you to learn and broaden your horizons, all because you articulated your feelings and demonstrated a willingness to meet in the middle. This is how you actively construct a connection, reinforcing the match that initially held promise. The inherent beauty of compromise, when executed with judiciousness, is that it does not diminish you, rather, it enriches the relationship. It signifies that you value the connection sufficiently to invest the requisite effort in its cultivation. It stands as a testament to your emotional maturity and your aspiration for authentic, enduring bonds. It is the active catalyst that transforms a promising initial card alignment into a profoundly fulfilling partnership. Therefore, while the allure of a perfect, effortless match is undeniably potent, the reality of constructing a rich and meaningful existence is frequently discovered within the skillful practice of compromise. It resides in the understanding that our differences, when navigated with respect and open communication, can indeed become the very threads that bind our lives more inextricably. It lies in the recognition that the art of compromise is not about accepting less, but about building something of even greater value, a connection that is resilient, adaptable, and profoundly, beautifully human. It is about engaging in the game of life not with an unblemished hand, but with the wisdom and grace to make every card count. 3. Expanding your social circle. We often find ourselves ensconced in the comforting embrace of routine, surrounded by the familiar cadence of known faces. Consider the tapestry of your days, the individuals you encounter at your place of work, the companions who have walked alongside you for years, perhaps even the regulars at your favored cafe. These constitute your existing social constellations, and they possess a unique and undeniable charm. They offer solace, understanding, and the profound assurance of belonging. Yet, a thought may arise, one that carries a subtle tremor of disquiet. These very circles, while providing a welcome warmth, can also erect invisible barriers, inadvertently curtailing the magnificent spectrum of individuals you might otherwise encounter. Envision life as an elaborate card game. Each of us is dealt a singular hand of cards, our inherent personalities, our distinctive quirks, our latent talents, our deepest aspirations. The ultimate objective of this game, as we have explored, is social matching, the art of discovering those other cards that interlock seamlessly with our own, forging exquisite harmonies in friendships, romances, and an infinite array of connections. The predicament arises when we confine our play to the same intimate circle of participants, thereby limiting our view to a mere sliver of the entire deck. We might hold a Queen of Hearts, but if our interactions are solely with those who consistently reveal spades, we may never apprehend that a perfect counterpart awaits, just across the table. The very architecture of society, our educational institutions, our professional environments, even our residential enclaves inherently congregates us with individuals who often bear a striking resemblance to ourselves. We share common temporal rhythms, immediate objectives, and frequently analogous backgrounds or inclinations. This is not an indictment. It is simply the prevailing order. However, it means the reservoir of people with whom we regularly engage becomes remarkably circumscribed and, candidly, quite homogeneous. If you are a software engineer, your daily milieu is likely populated by fellow software engineers. If you are a parent of young children, your most intimate associations may be with other parents navigating the same life stage. These are undeniably valuable bonds, but they represent a highly specific subset of the grand deck of existence. From a statistical vantage point, the probability of unearthing your most compatible match, your perfect card, diminishes significantly when your search is restricted to such a narrow demographic. You are, in essence, seeking a needle within a minuscule haystack when an entire field lies accessible. This constraint can precipitate a sensation many of us have come to recognize: the inclination to settle. You might find yourself in a friendship or a romantic partnership that, while not inherently flawed, lacks that spark of true joy or the resonance of a profound connection. You may rationalize this is adequate, or finding people is so challenging these days. Yet, more often than not, this stems not from any deficiency on your part or from the inherent rarity of genuine compatibility. It is far more probable that this is a direct consequence of a circumscribed social arena. When your encounters have been limited to a handful of individuals and their cards only partially align with yours, the pressure to make one of these partial matches function can feel overwhelming. You might compromise on shared values, life trajectories, or even fundamental personality traits, not by volition, but because the perceived Alternative, within your confined perspective, appears to be solitude. Consequently, the remedy lies not in lowering your standards or accepting less than you deserve. It is in recognizing that the sentiment of difficulty in finding people is frequently a symptom of a constricted search. Radius. The card game of life possesses an immense deck, brimming with an incalculable variety of unique and extraordinary cards. To discover your authentic counterpart, you must actively participate in shuffling that deck and drawing additional cards. This necessitates a conscious and persistent effort to broaden your social horizons. This is where the concept of proactive engagement assumes paramount importance. To passively await the miraculous arrival of new individuals is akin to anticipating a specific lottery number without purchasing a ticket. You must be an active player. Expanding your circle is not about assuming an alien persona or forcing yourself into uncomfortable scenarios. It is about cultivating an attitude of openness, curiosity, and a willingness to venture just beyond the periphery of your accustomed routines. It is about revealing your card, demonstrating approachability, and allowing others to perceive your authentic self, and then, critically, extending an invitation to explore the cards that others are presenting. How, then, do we achieve this? Reflect on the locales you already frequent. Might you initiate a conversation with a colleague with whom you rarely converse, venturing beyond the perfunctory exchanges of work? Could you inquire of your barista about their day, or perhaps about a book they might be engrossed in? These seemingly minor interactions can be the nascent steps in widening your perspective. The book's central tenet, social matching, transcends the mere pursuit of a solitary perfect individual. It is about comprehending that every interaction represents a potential data point, an opportunity to glimpse a new card. Let us consider a tangible, even playful, methodology. Conceive of a personal endeavor. Endeavor to engage in conversation with 3 new individuals each day. This does not imply soliciting their life histories or attempting to forge instant, profound friendships. It entails a brief, amiable exchange. It might be a compliment on someone's attire, a request for a recommendation, or simply offering a smile and a good morning to someone you pass on the thoroughfare. The objective is to establish a fleeting, positive rapport. Why 3? It represents a manageable quantity that fosters consistency. It aids in acclimatizing yourself to the initiation of contact, and it exponentially augments the number of distinct cards to which you are exposed over time. If you adhere to this practice assiduously, you will be interacting with dozens of novel individuals each week, each one a potential window into a different facet of the deck. This proactive stance directly confronts the psychological impediments that frequently impede our progress. The dread of rejection looms large, does it not? We apprehend uttering an inappropriate remark, appearing awkward, or being disregarded or rebuffed. This apprehension can be paralyzing, confining us securely within our familiar confines. However, if we reframe rejection not as an indictment of our intrinsic worth, but as mere data, its power diminishes. When you endeavor to reveal your card to someone, and they do not reciprocate in a manner that cultivates a connection, it is not an indicator of your unlovability or fundamental inadequacy. It is simply a sign that your card and their card did not generate the specific resonance you sought in that particular instance. Their card might be perfectly suited for another, or they might be seeking an entirely different kind of match. Consider it thus: you are seeking a particular hue of blue, yet the individual with whom you are conversing possesses only a palette of reds. It is not that their reds are deficient, nor that your blue is erroneous. It is merely that they do not represent the match you require at this juncture. This perspective is indispensable. It liberates you from the burden of personal failure and empowers you to perceive each interaction as a forward stride in your quest. Every brief exchange, every cordial acknowledgement constitutes information. It imparts a greater understanding of the vast panorama of humanity that exists. The measurement of expansion extends beyond the mere quantification of new acquaintances. It pertains to the quality and diversity of those interactions. Are you consistently venturing into novel environments? Are you engaging with individuals who possess disparate backgrounds, professions, and life experiences than those within your usual cohort? Are you making a concerted effort to initiate conversations rather than passively awaiting overviewers? For illustration, let us posit that your typical week comprises work, your established circle of friends, and perhaps a tranquil evening at home. Expanding your social sphere might entail incorporating one novel pursuit per week. This could involve attending a local photography workshop, even if photography is not your métier, volunteering at an animal shelter, joining a book club that explores genres outside your usual predilections, or participating in a community event. The crucial element is that these activities are designed to expose you to individuals beyond the confines of your pre-existing social structures. Let us consider Sarah. For years, Sarah's profession as an accountant dictated her social life, which revolved around her work colleagues and a select few long-standing companions. She frequently experienced a quiet sense of desolation, a feeling that something was wanting, yet she hesitated to alter her established patterns. She harbored anxieties about appearing awkward or intrusive. Then, she recalled the book's concept of social matching and the imperative of broadening her social landscape. She resolved to embark on the 3 strangers a day challenge, albeit with a modified approach. She committed to one new social engagement weekly. Her initial step was to join a local hiking group that convened on Saturdays. She felt a tremor of apprehension, but she reassured herself, it is merely a walk. I shall witness new vistas and perhaps encounter a new individual. During her inaugural hike, she found herself in conversation with a retired educator named David, who possessed captivating narratives of his travels. They discussed nature, literature, and the unadulterated pleasure of being outdoors. It was not an intimate, soul-bearing discourse, but it was a genuine connection with someone entirely outside her customary orbit. The subsequent week, she attended a complimentary pottery class at the community center. There she met Maria, a vivacious artist who approached existence with an entirely different energy than Sarah was accustomed to. They found common ground in their shared, somewhat clumsy, attempts at shaping clay. Sarah came to realize that each new interaction was not a trial to be failed, but an avenue for learning. David's anecdotes broadened her perspective on life's myriad possibilities. Maria's artistic spirit served as a reminder of the intrinsic value of creativity. Neither David nor Maria became her confidante overnight, but they represented new cards she had drawn, and the observation of those cards illuminated the vastness of the deck that lay beyond. She was not merely meeting people, she was accumulating data, gaining an appreciation for the extraordinary diversity of the human experience. This was not about resignation, it was about discovering the immensity of the deck and thereby augmenting her prospects of encountering truly complementary cards. The apprehension of rejection is often exacerbated by the notion that we must discover the one in every interaction. However, when we grasp that rejection is simply a signal of incompatibility, a lack of a match, the pressure dissipates. It signifies that the individual who did not connect with you was not rejecting you, but rather, your specific card was not the one they sought at that moment, for reasons undisclosed. This liberates us to be more open, more inquisitive, and more inclined to engage with a wider array of individuals. It permits us to be more authentic, as we are not striving to embody the perfect persona for every single encounter. We are simply being ourselves, revealing our card, and observing who resonates. The most profound transformation occurs when we transition from passively anticipating connections to actively engineering opportunities for their genesis. By consciously venturing beyond the familiar parameters of our established social constellations, we unlock a vast, latent reservoir of potential connections. This deliberate expansion not only elevates our probability of discovering genuine compatibility, but also redefines our understanding of interaction, converting tentative encounters into occasions for revelation. Yet, the mere act of meeting new individuals constitutes only the initial phase, The subsequent, crucial stage involves the cultivation of these nascent interactions into meaningful relationships. This brings us to the art of truly deepening the connection. 4. Embracing rejection. It is a curious thing, this phenomenon of rejection. For many, the very word can send a subtle tremor down the spine. We have been conditioned, through countless experiences and subtle cues, to equate being turned away, receiving a no, or simply failing to elicit the desired response with an inherent flaw within ourselves. The feeling can be akin to that of a deflated balloon, a puzzle piece inexplicably ill-suited to any available space. But what if our perspective is fundamentally misaligned? What if, in the grand theater of existence, rejection is not a mark of failure, but rather a directional beacon, guiding us toward our true path? Consider the unique cards we are each dealt at birth. Every individual is a singular composition of traits, inclinations, and ways of being. The central tenet of this exploration is that we are all engaged in a perpetual quest to find others whose cards not only align perfectly with ours, but also complement them exquisitely, thereby fostering a harmonious resonance. This intricate dance is what we term social matching. It is the pursuit of authentic connections, whether it be a confidant with whom to share the depths of one's soul or a life partner with whom to build a shared future. Now, envision yourself holding a magnificent, intricately designed 5 of diamonds. It is an object of inherent charm and considerable value in its own right. However, if your objective is to participate in a game where only 7 of spades are required, then your 5 of diamonds, however exquisite, will simply not suffice. The individual seeking a 7 of spades is not implicitly critiquing your 5 as flawed, unattractive, or worthless. They are merely in need of a different entity. This, precisely, is the dynamic that unfolds in our social lives. When an individual fails to resonate with us, or when an interaction does not blossom into the friendship or relationship we had envisioned, it is frequently a consequence of a simple card mismatch. They may not have been seeking your particular 5 of diamonds at that juncture, or perhaps they were in pursuit of something that your card, despite its own inherent loveliness, does not possess. It is at this juncture that we must cultivate absolute clarity regarding rejection. It is not an indictment of one's intrinsic worth. It is in essence data. Each instance where an attempt to connect does not culminate in a match provides us with valuable information. We gain a deeper understanding of our own desires and simultaneously expand our awareness of the vast spectrum of cards that populate the world. If you are a 5 of diamonds and persist in attempting to engage with those who exclusively seek 7 of spades, you are bound to encounter a significant degree of rejection. Conversely, should you begin to present your 5 of diamonds to individuals who appreciate 5s or who are themselves seeking a 5 to complete their own hand, a remarkable shift will commence and things will begin to fall into place. It is remarkably easy to succumb to the illusion that we are singular in our experience of this. We observe couples radiating happiness, groups of friends thriving in their camaraderie, and a voice within us whispers, "Why is this not my reality?" Yet, behind every successful union, there lies a tapestry woven from countless interactions that ultimately did not materialize. Consider it thus. If your pursuit is a specific volume within an immense library, you will inevitably pass by thousands of other books. You are not rejecting those other volumes. You are simply on a quest for a particular one. The same principle applies to our social existences. The sheer immensity of the global population renders it statistically improbable for any single individual to be a perfect match for everyone. In fact, it is even impossible to be a good match for every single person. We are endowed with unique personalities, shaped by disparate life experiences, and possess varying needs. To anticipate that every person we encounter will be a perfect fit for us, or that we will be a perfect fit for them, is to preemptively engineer our own disappointment. This is precisely why the dread of rejection can be so profoundly detrimental. If we are paralyzed by the apprehension of hearing that no, or of enduring an awkward silence, or of the unnerving absence of a reply, we begin to adopt a posture of caution. We confine ourselves to the company of those already within our orbit. We refrain from initiating conversations with new individuals at the local coffee shop. We forego joining that intriguing club that, nonetheless, evokes a sense of trepidation. Or we hesitate to reach out to that acquaintance who has consistently exuded kindness. We remain ensconced within our limited, familiar social enclaves. While this may offer a semblance of security in the immediate term, it represents the most perilous course of action for our long-term well-being. Because by circumscribing our interactions, we are drastically diminishing our social reservoir. We are curtailing the opportunities to encounter those individuals with whom we share genuine compatibility, those whose cards align flawlessly with our own. When our reservoir is constricted, we are more susceptible to feeling compelled to force a connection, even if it is not an ideal one. We may settle for a relationship that is merely adequate because the prospect of discovering something superior and the inherent risk of rejection that accompanies such a search feels overwhelmingly daunting. This, then, is the insidious trap of compromising on our social matching. However, there exists a profoundly beautiful counterpoint. Rejection, when we learn to perceive it through an enlightened lens, can serve as an extraordinary catalyst for personal growth. Every interaction that does not culminate in a match is, in essence, a pedagogical opportunity. It is akin to receiving subtle counsel from the universe. Perhaps you will deduce, following a series of somewhat awkward exchanges, that you need to articulate your interests with greater lucidity. Or it may become apparent that you experience a particular emotional resonance when attempting to connect with a certain type of individual, a realization that sheds light on the kind of energy you are truly seeking. Rejection aids us in refining our self-understanding and clarifying our deepest desires. It assists us in polishing the card we present, not by altering our fundamental essence, but by learning to more effectively showcase our authentic selves. Furthermore, it sharpens our perception of the kind of cards we hope to draw in return. Let us now address the internal recalibration necessary to effect this transformation, for it is within the confines of our own minds that the most profound changes are initiated. When that familiar sting of rejection makes its presence known, it is all too easy for our inner critic to interject with a disheartening pronouncement. See? I told you weren't good enough. We internalize this judgment, allowing it to become a definitive statement about our intrinsic value. It is at this critical juncture that we must actively disrupt this ingrained thought pattern and supplant it with a more accurate and empowering perspective. Instead of allowing yourself to dwell on the thought, "I wasn't good enough," endeavor to reframe it. You can articulate to yourself, "This was not the opportune card for me to play with them," or "They were not the opportune card for me to draw at this particular moment." These are subtle shifts in articulation, yet their impact is profound. They redirect the focus away from personal deficiency and toward a matter of compatibility, a simple, objective divergence. It is akin to donning a different pair of spectacles. Suddenly, the problem is not you, the situation is merely a matter of finding the correct alignment. Permit me to recount an anecdote that indelibly impressed this concept upon my consciousness. Years ago, I was actively seeking to forge a new friendship. I encountered an individual at a community gathering, and initially, it appeared as though we had established an immediate rapport. We engaged in discussions about literature and cinema, and I sensed a nascent spark of connection. I extended an invitation to meet for coffee the subsequent week. I waited and waited, but received no response. No text message, no email, nothing. My immediate reaction was a surge of profound disappointment, swiftly followed by the insidious whisper of self-doubt. Was I overly enthusiastic? Did I utter something peculiar? Was I simply not engaging enough? I meticulously replayed the entire conversation in my mind countless times, scrutinizing it for any perceived misstep. For several days, I felt a pervasive sense of deflation, as if my 5 of diamonds card had been summarily rejected. However, At that juncture, I recalled the fundamental principle: social matching. I began to contemplate the situation from a different vantage point. Perhaps this individual was already deeply immersed in friendships that operated on a fundamentally different rhythm than the one I was proposing. It was conceivable that they were a seven of spades seeking another seven of spades, and my five of diamonds. Energy, while perfectly acceptable in its own right, was simply not what they required to complete their hand at that particular time. The issue was not a reflection of my inherent worth as a friend. It was a matter of the specific dynamic they were seeking. This profound realization proved to be extraordinarily liberating. It empowered me to relinquish the burden of self-recrimination. Rather than perceiving myself as a rejected card, I began to view myself as a card that was simply being held in reserve for the appropriate game. I resolved not to dwell on that singular missed connection, but rather to interpret it as an encouraging prompt to remain receptive to other opportunities. A week later, I joined a hiking group, and within a few weeks, I encountered an individual who shared my fondness for vintage films and possessed a comparable sense of humor. We connected instantly, and that initial coffee date blossomed into enduring friendship. My five of diamonds had discovered its perfect counterpart, not by undergoing a metamorphosis, but by being presented within the correct context, and by not allowing the earlier mismatch to dampen my resolve. Therefore, how can we practically discern the difference between a genuine lack of match and a scenario where our card might require a more nuanced or explicit presentation? This is a question of paramount importance, and it necessitates a degree of candid introspection. The crux of the matter lies in observing prevailing patterns and engaging in honest self-assessment of one's own energy and communication style. A true lack of match frequently manifests as a fundamental disconnect, even when one is exerting considerable effort. You may find yourselves struggling to establish common ground, or conversations might feel contrived and superficial. There may be a pervasive absence of enthusiasm or reciprocity from the other party, even if they are maintaining a veneer of politeness. If you have initiated contact on multiple occasions, demonstrated genuine interest, and consistently received minimal or dismissive responses, it serves as a potent indicator that the cards are not aligning. The issue is not a reflection of how you are presenting your card, but rather that the card itself is not what the other person is seeking or requiring at that specific moment. Consider it akin to attempting to fit a square peg into a round aperture. No amount of manipulation or gentle persuasion will achieve success if the shapes are fundamentally incompatible. Conversely, a situation where your card might benefit from a more explicit presentation often involves circumstances where potential exists, but something is being lost in the process of transmission. This could pertain to articulating your interests with greater openness, divulging your unique qualities with enhanced confidence, or being more direct about your aspirations within a connection. For instance, if you possess a naturally shy disposition and tend to await overtures from others, your card may be present, but it remains obscured by a veil of reticence. In such a scenario, the solution lies not in altering your card, but in learning to reveal it with greater boldness. Perhaps you need to cultivate the practice of posing more questions, sharing a pertinent anecdote, or establishing more consistent eye contact and offering more readily offered smiles. The objective is not to assume an identity that is incongruent with your own, but to ensure that your authentic self is both visible and accessible to others. It also extends to comprehending your own communication paradigm. Are you inherently reserved, or do you lean towards a more outgoing demeanor? Do you tend to communicate with directness, or do you favor a more subtle approach? Recognizing these inclinations will illuminate how others might be perceiving you, and whether you may need to adjust your delivery, rather than your core message. For example, if you are someone who relishes profound, philosophical discourse, yet your conversations are confined to discussions of whether your card is not being fully represented. You may need to artfully steer conversations towards subjects that genuinely ignite your passion, thereby allowing others to apprehend the full depth of your intriguing card. What are the psychological mechanisms that imbue rejection with such a profoundly personal character, and what specific cognitive reframing techniques can be employed to directly counteract these mechanisms within the context of social interaction? This is where we delve into the very heart of why rejection inflicts such a painful wound, and how we can cultivate resilience in its wake. One of the most significant psychological mechanisms at play is our innate imperative for belonging. Humans are fundamentally social beings. From our earliest ancestral progenitors, acceptance by the collective signified the very essence of survival. Consequently, rejection taps into a primal apprehension of ostracization, of isolation. When we encounter rejection, our brains can interpret it as a direct threat to our social standing and, by extension, our personal safety. This triggers a potent emotional response, sensations of shame, sorrow, anxiety, and even anger. Another contributing factor is the inherent tendency of our brains to fixate on the negative. We are evolutionarily predisposed to attend to potential threats, and rejection can readily be perceived as a menace to our self-esteem. We may find ourselves ruminating on the adverse aspects of an interaction, replaying every perceived imperfection, while inadvertently overlooking any positive moments or potential advantages. This phenomenon is frequently designated as the negativity bias. Furthermore, we often fall prey to the insidious trap of personalization. Conclusion: we have traversed the intricate deck of existence, examining the unique hand dealt to each individual at birth and the universal yearning to find kindred spirits who echo our own frequency. Central to this voyage is the tenet of social matching, the recognition that authentic connection transcends the notion of a perfect fit into a preordained slot, instead demanding an active pursuit and discernment of compatibility within an expanded social milieu. We have observed how the very architecture of our quotidian lives, the predictable cadences of academia, the professional arena, the solace of established friendships, can inadvertently foster echo chambers, thereby constricting the diversity of individuals we encounter. This confinement, as we have witnessed, frequently engenders a sense of resignation, a silent capitulation born not of genuine resonance, but of a circumscribed pool of available cards. The pressure to secure a match within these delimited confines can impel us to overlook nascent connections or to acquiesce to relationships that fail to truly invigorate our spirits. It is as though the game itself is predetermined, with the societal arbiter presenting us a hand of cards that are too meager, too uniform, and too predictable. Yet, the inherent splendor of the card game of life resides in our agency. We are not mere pawns. The power to influence the game, to reorder the deck in our favor, rests within our grasp. The most potent stratagem we have unearthed is the simple yet profound act of consistently and deliberately broadening our social engagements. The seemingly minor habit of interacting with novel individuals transcends mere social practice. It is a conscious endeavor to enlarge your social sphere, to augment the number of hands you are willing to play and the spectrum of cards to which you are exposed. Each discourse, each fleeting encounter, presents an opportunity to reveal your card and to observe the cards of others. It is within these moments of unvarnished, spontaneous interaction that the alchemy of social matching truly begins to manifest. You commence to discern patterns, to identify kindred souls, and to discover individuals whose suits and numbers harmonize with your own in ways previously unimagined within your established circles. This is not about fabricating connections, but about cultivating the fertile ground for their organic blossoming. Unwavering consistency is paramount. Each day's exertion builds upon the preceding, exponentially amplifying your prospects of encountering a genuine match. One of the most emancipating revelations we have explored is the true essence of rejection. Within the card game of life, a perceived rejection rarely constitutes a condemnation of your intrinsic worth. Rather, it is a simple indicator of a no match. Your card, in that specific instance, did not align with the card presented by the other individual. Conceive of it as a gentle redirection, a subtle course correction. It signifies that that particular pairing was not destined to forge a winning hand. This liberates you from the oppressive weight of self-doubt, empowering you to approach each interaction with a spirit of inquiry, rather than trepidation. In this game, there are no vanquished players, only those who have yet to discover their ideal partner for a given hand. Every no match propels you one step closer to the yes match that will profoundly enrich your life. Envision an existence wherein your social circle is a vibrant mosaic, intricately woven with the diverse threads of myriad experiences, perspectives, and authentic connections. A life characterized by friendships forged in the crucible of mutual understanding and romantic unions distinguished by profound compatibility and shared felicity. This is the promise inherent in actively engaging in the card game of life with deliberate intent. It is about cultivating a life abundant not merely in the quantity of interactions, but in the qualitative depth of the connections you forge. These are the relationships that sustain us, that ignite our inspiration, and that imbue the journey of life with profound meaning. By steadfastly venturing beyond the confines of our conventional social structures, we dismantle the limitations imposed by society, thereby opening ourselves to a boundless realm of possibilities for genuine, fulfilling relationships. The deck resides within your hands. The game is yours to command. Embrace the principle of social matching, expand your circle through persistent, courageous engagement, and repose faith in the certainty that each interaction is a deliberate stride toward discovering your most compatible matches. Proceed forth, present your card, engage with a wider array of individuals, and deal yourself a life replete with authentic connection.